Realize that it's not just about being paid, because we knew obviously for years that we weren't being paid. We're not naive to that fact, but it was because there was pressure for the obligation. And
you're not earning anything from the reality show.
We don't earn anything from the reality show.
Did you think that was strange though? That you had donated 12 years of your life to television and you never saw a dime of that?
Yes, but I was also very conditioned. That's like one of the things about it. Like you're conditioned to think, oh, well, you know, this is just
it's a ministry, it's an obligation.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. This isn't going to be a super long video, but Bob Duggar, who has been the talking point of Jill Dillard and Derek Dillard as they have been promoting their book, Counting the Costs. We have learned from them in their book that Bob hoarded the money that he made on the show, 19 Kids and Counting, along with Counting On. And in Jill's book, she talks quite a bit about how she noticed that her family's lifestyle had changed from having planes to buying more property to having more cars. And while Bob was all about buy, used, save the difference, he did invest a lot of the money that he should have paid to his kids in real estate. And on the show, Bob claimed that he was a real estate investor, and sure, but his catalog of property didn't expand until he became a fixture on reality television. He did work in real estate. He also owned a car lot, and he had a towing business. And none of those things were making him a ton of money until he finally hit pay dirt with a TV show on TLC. Now, in Jill's book, she estimates that over the course of his time on reality television, he likely made more than $8 million. That's not including speaking engagements or any of the other book sales, merchandise that they sold. And he bought up a ton of property over the years, and he was going to try to turn some of this property into businesses. When Bob and the family lost the show, Counting On, after Josh's arrest in 2021, they basically lost around $850,000 to $1 million a year in income, liquid. And Bob had been using that income to invest in properties, to buy stuff for his hoarding addiction. And so since his show went off the air, he has lost a huge paycheck. It was his most consistent paycheck. And with his sons working for him, and some of them flying planes, others of them building, Bob doesn't have a ton of liquid assets. And on top of that has had really large legal fees to pay. And he's had to take on supporting Anna and her 7 children. He has a lot of mouths to feed. He has a big family. And since Josh's arrest, he has been selling and liquidating property. One piece of property he has been attempting to sell is a parcel of land that's located in Fayetteville for around 25 acres. And he has been trying to sell this for over $6 million. Derek and Jill revealed in their book that they received a tax bill at the end of one year from the IRS telling them that $130,000 had been claimed on taxes by Mad Family Inc. Money that they had never been paid, money that they never received, but Bob was using it as a way to avoid his own personal tax liability. Well, he's about to do this again, and this time to one of his sons, because Bob is about to sell a piece of property that he purchased back in 2011 for $400,000. He had been holding on to this property for years, hoping to build an RV park on it. Unfortunately, the city of and fortunately, the city of Fayetteville and the neighbors of this property opposed the proposal of the RV park, and it was rejected by the city. Jim Bob hasn't done anything with the property since and had likely just been holding on to it for the purpose of it appreciating, and he held it in a revocable trust, which reduced his overall tax liability. And ahead of selling this property, Jim Bob made the decision to transfer the property to a company owned by his son, Jeremiah Duggar. He then listed the property for $6.25 million. And rather than him being taxed on the sale of this property, Jeremiah Duggar will be receiving income tax bills for this company and potentially property gains taxes, because the property was only transferred less than a year ago. Jim Bob has been utilizing his kids to avoid his own tax responsibility, and because his children are lacking education and likely being withheld documents, Jeremiah might not even know that he owns this company. In fact, the deed of sale, the quitclaim deed that he completed, Jim Bob, in 2023 is a transfer from his revocable trust to Commercial Space LLC. On the business records for this company, the agent, incorporated, and member of this company, Commercial Space LLC, from the state's perspective, it's all in Jeremiah Duggar's name. And yet, the manager of the company, who is likely serving as an employee and not an owner, thus not having any tax responsibility, was Jim Bob Duggar. So Jim Bob transferred this property into Jeremiah's company. Jeremiah had no part of that, maybe doesn't even know this is in his company at this moment. And Jeremiah, through the company as the agent and the incorporator and the owner of the company, will be hit with the taxes. Jeremiah may have no clue that his dad set this up for him. He may have no clue that this property is owned in his name. And when the seller buys this, they will not have to buy it from Jim Bob Duggar. So he has taken a piece of property that he purchased in 2011 for $400,000, money that he should have been paying for the kids, is going to put the RV park on, didn't happen, puts it on the market, transfers the property to Jeremiah's dummy company, Commercial Space LLC, that literally is a shell company in Jeremiah's name. And now the property is pending sale. The property's price, $6.25 million, is going to be a huge profit for Jim Bob. It also could be a huge tax liability to Jeremiah. And Jim Bob, because he no longer owns this property on paper, avoids income tax and capital gains tax penalties, and again finds a way to defraud the tax system. In plain sight, Jim Bob has a million eyes on him watching what he's doing, and he's continuing to do transactions that are fraudulent, in my opinion. So this property is listed by his friend Tom Joseph. Tom Joseph is his realtor, and the home it had been on the market for almost a year, this property, and it's being sold as commercial. So I don't know what they're going to end up, the buyers of this, I don't know who they are, I don't know what they're going to buy it for, I don't know what they're going to develop on it, but Jim Bob is going to sell this and then likely get access to this money, because I'm sure Jeremiah may or may not even know that this property is in his name. And Jeremiah could end up with a high tax bill. Now, who pays that tax bill? Could it be Jeremiah with his business that he has with flying planes? Could you imagine being the sons of Jim Bob, where he's constantly putting things in your names and then you're the ones that are paying the taxes for him and he's not paying the taxes? Talk about greedy. And you're probably not even seeing the income. My speculation. But the fact that Jim Bob continues to liquidate assets and not reinvest it in property is telling to me, because he has Anna to take care of. He's got legal fees for Josh because he's still paying Josh's lawyers. They are currently trying to have the Supreme Court review his case. They haven't given up on getting him free, you know, because they're going to find the real person that did this. And in the middle of all of that, they haven't paid off Josh's tax lien to this, which is, or the judgment on his case, which is $50,000. But they will spend all this money on his defense. On top of the property that he is selling there, he's also unloading a $599,000 piece of property that is owned by John David. The property that's owned by John David is, again, likely in John David's name only because Jim Bob is the patriarch. So in the span of about probably a month, Jim Bob is going to be walking into a windfall of over $6.8 million. And neither of these are going to be in his name so that he can avoid the income tax, he can avoid having to pay taxes on it, and it can be pushed on to his kids. I hope Derek is right, and I do hope the IRS is watching this because what he's doing cannot be legal. What have they been doing with some of the money that they've been making? Well, Mr. John David has been stockpiling broken down planes and old planes, and his Medic Choppers company has now over 25 planes and helicopters as a part of their fleet. Now, not all of these are planes that are flyable. Many of them are super old, 1950s, 1960s. These are relatively inexpensive planes, but they're clearly putting money into planes. Jim Bob recently purchased a larger plane, personal plane for himself through Duggar Aviation. And what he's going to do with this new windfall of money remains to be seen. He was hoping to expand a business onto a piece of property, but the city in Tontitown was kind of kicking back at that, and I don't know if it's moved forward at this time. He has had a lot of pushback locally to do anything. And even with selling this property, he had to hide himself as the seller so people would actually buy it. It's clear to me that the liquid assets of Jim Bob are not the same as they once were. Jim Bob doesn't work in real estate. He hasn't sold a house in years. His sons build homes and his sons sell homes. And they probably get a certain portion of that money, but I'm sure a certain portion goes to him. The only income job he would be making is he has a couple rentals where he has car dealerships that rent properties from him. And he has like two car dealerships and then a enterprise car and then a donut shop where he collects commercial rent from. But outside of that, Jim Bob doesn't have any businesses of his own. He recently set up a website for cell tower listings. So if someone has property and they want to rent space for a cell tower, he's going to have a website for that. And Jim Bob will somehow find a way to avoid tax responsibility here. And we'll see if he actually ends up buying more property with this or if it's just he needs cash. Because he hasn't, like I said, been buying property since he's been selling from his portfolio. And this is probably one of the more expensive pieces of property that he owns. He doesn't have a ton of these pieces of property. He's got another piece that he could probably sell worth a couple $1 million. And after that, it's just a bunch of small parcels and then a few commercial properties. But if you have to keep selling your assets to keep up your lifestyle eventually, and you're not making and generating income out of that, you're going to run out of money at some point, or the IRS is going to catch up to you. So Jim Bob is about to swindle his son and swindle some buyers, and swindle the IRS with this sale. Allegedly, my opinion. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye.